We hear a lot about psychedelic-assisted therapy, but 3 out of 4 people who choose to consume psychedelics do so at home or in nature with friends or loved ones. I'm April, founder of Set, an integration platform to help you get the most out of your psychedelic experiences. The podcast episode you're about to listen to may reference one of my previous shows, The High Guide or How to Do the Pot, because I've been a trusted source in cannabis and psychedelics since 2015. I invite you to visit getsetset.com and sign up for our newsletter to receive your free guide on set and setting to make the most of your next psychedelic journey. This podcast discusses cannabis and is intended for audiences 21 and over.
For the last 100 plus years, since 1930 something, but pretty much every nursing textbook, like all these textbooks, mostly they have chapters on cannabis abuse or marijuana abuse and how to help patients go through treatment for this. That's what you get when you open up a textbook. You know, there's no section on how wonderful and amazing cannabis is.
The 4 letters PTSD are woven into our modern lexicon, from songline to punchline. And while some turn to music to soothe symptoms of PTSD and others to humor, more and more we're turning to cannabis. Certainly during these days of COVID, there's talk of cannabis as an essential service, in no small part to ensure those who depend on cannabis to mitigate symptoms of PTSD and other mental health diagnoses can get their medicine. To date, most of the research studies on cannabis for PTSD have focused on veterans. Still, the evidence is not enough to support clinical recommendations, both for vets or anyone in the general population diagnosed with PTSD. You just heard from Sandra Guynes, aka the Kush Nurse, speaking to Kia Baker, the host of the Female Veterans Podcast. Sandra is a nurse with over 15 years of experience. Her story of finding cannabis to help the PTSD she experienced after a traumatic birth inspired her to help others find the right cannabis medicine. Kia and Sandra have graciously shared audio from a recent episode, and you can hear more of their story on the Female Veterans Podcast, available wherever you listen.
I am so glad that, veterans now have more, I don't want to say access, but at least the ability to be honest about their consumption and not feel like it's something that's going to be scrutinized or cause them to lose the benefits that they've earned fighting for this country. One of the things about cannabis is with PTSD, it's really helpful because it decreases your REM sleep cycle. Mm-hmm. So it decreases the ability for you to have nightmares. So with a lot of PTSD sufferers, that's one of the biggest triggers is the nightmares and night terrors. Not the first time, but a few times after that, you'll start to have some more psych effects where you can maybe recall memories and things like that, which is really good for PTSD sometimes because you're recalling these memories, but the memories can be recalled in a way where your body is not in that fight or flight, reaction. And so I recalled a lot of things from my birth with my daughter, and that helped me settle those emotions and things in my brain because I always felt like I'm dying because in that moment I was dying and I never got rid of that emotion. Mm-hmm. So whenever things stressed me, I went back to that stressful emotion.
Goodness. Yes.
I'm dying. And it just always would take over me. I would tell people it was like a wave and I would be sitting there gently playing in the water. And then all of a sudden it's like, I can't get out from under this tide.
COVID has brought mental health into our national conversation, and we're all dealing with extreme levels of stress and anxiety. A New York Times article written by Dr. Jennifer Tates, an assistant clinical professor in psychiatry at UCLA, titled How to Reduce Your Risk of PTSD in a Post-COVID-19 World, I'll link to it in the show notes, shares some ideas that inspired me to think about how weed can help. Whether you've been diagnosed with PTSD or you're trying to manage a whole lot more stress than usual, a high five to help us all come out of 2020 feeling better. Number 1, what is post-traumatic stress disorder? PTSD is a mental disorder that develops following a stressful, frightening, or life-threatening event. 10% of women develop PTSD in their lives. Number 2, With COVID, Dr. Tate says, we are in the middle of the trauma, not post-stress. So she reminds us that during a crisis, we need to take breaks to soothe ourselves. I like to say that if you can find a silver lining during COVID, you're one of the lucky few. If you think I should shove that silver up my ass, there is definitely a strain to adjust your thinking, and my ass thanks you. Number 3, love yourself and others. No matter how good it may feel to play the hater, studies show that dropping judgment can significantly reduce loneliness. So if you decide to say yes to a CBD tincture before lunch, or your roommate takes an edible while house cleaning, give both of you a break. We are in the middle of a global pandemic and the hills are ablaze. Number 4, try not to overthink. I dare you. Dr. Tate says, and I quote, I can't emphasize enough that it's normal to feel anxious now. Yay, we're all finally normal. To process thoughts about the pandemic that replay in your mind, she offers some techniques for when your thoughts aren't useful. Engage in mentally absorbing activities like working on a crossword puzzle or just working, or grounding yourself by noticing 3 sights, 3 sounds, and 3 sensations in your environment again and again. When ruminating starts, catch it and exchange it for gratitude. Number 5, the endocannabinoid system, or the ECS, is showing promising results linked to diminishing symptoms of PTSD, including excessive threat processing and anxiety. And of course, 3 beloved strains to treat PTSD. Pennywise, which is a 1-to-1 strain that offers mental clarity and focus with milder intoxicating effects. Trainwreck, it's exactly as its name describes. It's a high THC strain that offers a rush of euphoria and awakens creativity. I really love Trainwreck. Jack Hare is the feel-good strain, and it actually shares a dominant terpene with Trainwreck, terpenoline, which we'll get into more in future episodes as we dive deeper into these strains. But Jack Hare, it's the feel-good strain, and it's very motivating. It's a great strain to organize your garage. It offers constant euphoria without uncomfortable spikes.